Fire, 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 fire. Aneurism 4. Burn bodies, steal laundry, become proletariat. Cook meth, eat the poor. Yum.
Aneurism 4. A game, a lifestyle, a cannibalism simulator. In this highly anticipated sequel to Crash Bandicoot, you play as one of many citizens living in the dystopian police state known as Aneurism 4. This city has a colorful...
I said this... I said I'm Russian, but this does look like Russia.
...approach to politics, with strong similarities to late-war Nazi Germany, as well as...
I mean...
both Soviet and Chinese communism, all wrapped up in an Orwellian hellscape where
Chaotic
government-issued
Nazis.
rations are highly medicated and hair is illegal. To answer your
Oh,
question,
no, everyone's
it is
bald?
as great as it sounds, because the entire thing is a 60-player online free-for-all with a very liberal interpretation of the social contract.
It's an online game? That's sick!
In case you're wondering what your average day might look like, I'll walk you through it. The game begins, and I have terrible news. You're alive.
No!
You spawned in as a member of the proletariat, and fittingly, your name is likely some variation of greasy laborer or unskilled wagey. You
Wagey, getting cagey.
are a cog in the machine, so get
I
to
love
work.
that.
Head to the government-owned laundromat for menial labor. The washing machines are full of dead bodies, all of them. Decide to find a new job. Walking down the street, you witness a police officer gun a man down in broad daylight before producing a pickaxe and mining his body for organic matter. The officer stares into your eyes and says calmly and almost mechanically,
"Welcome to Aneurism 4.
before he has a
The roleplay must go so freaking hard, chat.
chance to excavate your skeleton, the sound of air raid sirens envelop the city. It's time to go to war. You head to the munitions factory to do your part in the war effort, building somewhere between 20 to 30 warheads. While
Oh, you know what this kind of reminds me of? The aesthetic, I mean? What's that game that was before Repo? Do you guys know what I'm talking about? The one that's like this, it was, after Lethal Company, but before Repo. I played it. No, not Lethal Company. Content warning! Yeah, the aesthetic's kind of like content warning.
getting bombarded by enemy airstrikes. An artillery shell tears through the ceiling, and you witness 11 people get ripped apart in the blast. The
Oh my
carnage
God.
is incalculable. Even worse, all of the
the
survivors
corpses,
pulled out
chat.
knives and started stripping the bodies for their meat. Dear God, what have I witnessed? You promptly go insane and spend the next 20 minutes hallucinating. Eventually, it all becomes too much for you to bear, so you jump headfirst into an industrial incinerator and die. Life in Aneurism
What?
4 is just that simple. In the face of this
Dude,
nightmarish
what?
reality, you could be forgiven for assuming Aneurism 4 to be a work of fiction, but it's actually based on the lived experience of the French-Canadian developers based out of Montreal.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard some stories from Canada. They're not doing so hot right now. They're not doing so awesome.
This game is a bit too unpredictable for one of my
Montreal
normal
is a
videos,
hellscape.
so instead I'm going to swirl it around in my mouth
Those
like a
damn
fine
French.
wine, carefully and meticulously reviewing every element of the gameplay while sharing some of my best and
French.
worst experiences. But before we can assess the practicality of taking methadone and eating people's organs, I have to tell you something. 4.5 years ago, I died in a tragic skydiving accident. Long story short, someone replaced my parachute with about 50 collectible Funko Pops, which resulted
That
in what
sounds
the medical
horrible.
examiner described as an uncontrolled descent. This was an unfortunate outcome, but luckily
hate
I was
Funko
prepared.
Pops,
I had
chat.
left careful instructions that in the event of my death, I should be medically embalmed with GamerSupps energy supplements.
Oh, he put silver on the top. That's so based.
After the coroner juiced me up with 5,500 cc's of inflationist-flavored energy powder, I rose from the grave like a revenant of horniness, and I've been making videos ever since. Now listen, I'm not claiming that GamerSupps will give you the power of self-resurrection, but
It will.
it might. Point is, it's delicious and makes my brain go... So go ahead and buy some. Jump out of a plane,
He's got
lead a
ADHD
cult,
too,
blow
huh?
up the moon, I don't care. Just remember to use code Reggie for 10% off. Now back to the video. Aneurism 4 is a complex ecosystem of sociopaths, opportunists, and victims of sociopaths and opportunists, which all roughly work together to create a quasi-functioning society with bankers, vendors, doctors, street cleaners,
And
a
these are all
police force.
people,
The power
chat.
dynamic is as follows. The city streets are controlled by the government, which is the ultra-violent and authoritarian cortex. As a citizen, you are compelled to contribute to the cortex through manual labor, because if you don't, this guy's going to shoot you in the head. It's not perfect, but I'd be lying if I said it wasn't kind of charming. The only other faction in the game is the Scum. The Scum is an anti-establishment cult that operates out of a complex sewer system beneath the city. Its class structure is comparatively simple. You are either a scumbag or a religious zealot. But really, those are both just fancy words for domestic terrorist. The Scum and Cortex vie for
they'd be perfect for Twitch then.
Control of the city in a perpetual struggle between order and chaos. The Cortex strives to find new and exciting ways to deprive us of human rights, while the Scum attempts to destroy the city by deploying biological weapons and sabotaging public infrastructure. It is a rare and brave decision to make the only two factions in your game this irredeemable, and I respect it immensely. The only thing about this game that I don't respect immensely is the netcode. If your server has more than 35 people in it, things start to get very strange and a little frightening. And if you go all the way up to 60 players, the molecules in your body may as well be quantum entangled with a dumpster on the other side of the map, because you will be teleporting there. That being said, I recommend 20 to 30 players as the sweet spot, but I digress. Your experience in Aneurism 4 is informed greatly by your class, which can be selected using your accumulated social credit to inhabit different bodies, but we all start off as proles, so...
it's like, what's that new game where you inhabit bodies after you die? That's like a looter shooter freaking respawn game. No, not Among Us, you ding dong. DPD! No! That one that's the shooter! And then, yeah, Marathon, that was it. Yeah, Marathon has like the respawn function where they're like, oh yeah, you need your credits up so that you can keep going.
We'll begin there. The prole is a filthy and uneducated creature of socialism with one purpose and one purpose alone. Hard labor. You must work in the factories. You must supply the cortex with goods. And you must remain discreet and productive. You must...
The fucking soy face.
Do these things because as a prole, you are the ultimate victim of circumstance. You have no recourse because you have no thing. I'll give you an example. My first day as a prole involved me getting lost on my way to the laundromat and accidentally wandering down some tunnels. The further I descended, the darker it became. And before long, I had lost track of the exit. I struggled in the darkness for about 10 minutes before resigning myself to starvation, until I saw it in the distance. A man was approaching me with a flashlight. I begged him to guide me out of the tunnels. He stared at me in complete silence before dropping to his knees and sucking me off.
I feel like these people take it a little bit too literally. Like, maybe this is their real life escapism and they have to, like, continue living life like this. You would pause there? Of course. Two men sucking each other off. What, do you hate gays or something?
This went on for about 30 seconds until he got up and led me to the exit.
Mister?
In this interaction, I was completely powerless. All I could do was moan gaily and wait for it to be over. I tell you this to highlight the importance of my next tip.
Reggie, you could have told him to stop, you know?
The first thing you want to do as a prole is go to the metalworks and get an iron pipe. Your chance of being filleted by another man in an
Did he really have to put Destiny on the screen? Like, this actually kind of jump scared me.
Ground tunnel is never zero, but with this,
I really didn't have to be reminded of that.
It's pretty close. Now listen, I'm going to be blunt. Every day that you exist, you accumulate a government debt for being alive. And before you ask, no, this isn't some kind of income tax. I don't have an income. All I've done so far is take amphetamines and beat people to death at the metalworks. Point is, we need to get a job before this debt piles up. Fortunately, there's a few options. You could work at the laundromat, washing and drying clothes. The iron pipe you got earlier is going to come in handy, because laundry thieves are a pervasive problem, and knocking their brains out with a pipe is the only solution. All in all,
this is what I was scared of when I had black mold in my laundry machine, and my landlord, who is a slumlord apparently, said no. No, we're not gonna get you a new one. And for 3 days, I had to go to the laundromat and do my laundry. I literally washed my laundry machine like a hog, so I can relate. All I needed was a baseball bat. It would have really fit the role play.
All laundry is pretty simple. Just remember, never stop the drying.
True.
Successfully folded clothes will award you financial compensation and social credit that can be used to change classes. Finally, as a society, we can quantify the value of human life in terms of units of folded laundry. Personally, I'm convinced that this entire place is a psyop to increase the sales of insanity medication, because the amount of social credit you receive for working here appears to be completely RNG, and something like that takes my mind to a very dark place. I had to kill a man and get cavity searched by the police 9 times just to finish my wash cycle, and you're telling me I'm not doing my part? I quit. Other jobs include the ironworks, where you mine, smelt, and process ore into various industrial components for the cortex. But don't stop there. Get some friends and stage a hostile takeover of the mines.
You're done. You're done.
Kill anyone that doesn't pay tribute to the coal syndicate.
Yeah! It's like the mafia, bitch!
You think you can escape? No, we've got someone waiting for you at the exit, and chasing you around made us pretty hungry. So now we're going to have to cannibalize you. Maybe killing people in a strip mine isn't your vibe. There's always the ration factory. Modern society uses a series of contrivances to weed out the intellectually stunted. Aneurism 4 uses the ration factory.
That's not true. That's the problem with society right now. Everybody gets to win, even if you're a loser.
Where you solve math problems at work terminals and get painfully electrocuted for every wrong answer. There are several other jobs available as a pro, and many of them can result in your immediate death. But I'll let you figure that out on your own. After all that, you've probably worked up quite an appetite, so allow me to introduce you to the ration cycle. This is a 15-minute citywide event where the government hands out free food. If you thought the laundromat was crazy, just wait until you see the entire server pile into the cafeteria on ration day. In the chaos, it is not uncommon to see people burned alive for cutting the line, because in this world, the greatest crime you can commit is stealing another man's slop.
That's so cool. They have like guards that roleplay and keep them in check. It's just like real life, guys!
There is no knife sharp enough, no pit deep enough, and no incinerator hot enough to properly punish the ration thieves.
You pushed unskilled Wagey.
We're doing our best. The rations will take care of your hunger, but for thirst, I recommend the public fountains. There is a 50% chance you contract intestinal worms, and I know that sounds like a bad thing, but once you have the worms, that just means you don't have to worry about getting them anymore. So drink as much as you want. The final step to take care of is your insanity. I know watching the police gun down those ration thieves was quite fun, but it also gave you schizophrenia. For this, the treatment is quite simple. Go to the club and let the dulcet tones of Slavic folk music gradually restore your sanity. Going to a completely empty club isn't something I'd normally recommend to an insane man dying of stomach worms.
I can confirm this works. If I listen to traditional music from Eastern Europe, it like calms me down.
But it works. That concludes your survival routine. But what does it feel like to be a prole living in Aneurism 4? Hypothesis. Aneurism 4 isn't perfect, but it is rich in culture. Counterpoint. Get me out of this godforsaken...
Is that Seth? That's Seth right there.
In a hellhole. I spend every night rummaging through dumpsters in hopes that I can find enough bottles of glue to end my life. And every day I wake up back at the laundromat. As a prole, your value to society comes from your capacity to endure hardship for the greater good of the state. I'll give you an example. Every so often, a random wartime event starts where the entire server is compelled to make bombs for the cortex. When this happens, your already worthless life somehow becomes even more expendable. I once witnessed a man lit on fire for not meeting productivity quotas, and rather than extinguishing him, the doctors just prescribed him methadone so he could work through the pain. You might think that after his charred corpse was dragged away for cannibalization, he could...
That's what it feels like to wake up sick and then you get dragged to work, man. It's just like real life, bro.
Finally rest, but you'd be wrong, because it's not uncommon for the police to prop up our corpses against the workbench in hopes that they may yet be able to extract some waning vestiges of labor from our cold, dead bodies. Even in death, we toil. These are the conditions that radicalize a man. So when I tell you that despite making up only 20% of the server, proles are responsible for 90% of the crime, you will respond, only 90%? As a prole, you are paradoxically the most dangerous and least dangerous class for the exact same reason. You have nothing, and we need to use that to our advantage. I once witnessed a cop gun down a prole in the streets. In response, about a dozen of us formed a posse and chased him across town until he ran out of breath and had to start mowing us down. We knew...
Did he do this with viewers? This must have been so fucking funny.
that we could never kill him, but we could absolutely destroy his social credit, and that's even better. Despite that example, I will admit that mass RDMing is actually fairly uncommon. I could tell you it's because of a public veneration of the social contract, a profound sense of community and respect, but that would be a lie. The only thing stopping that cop from blowing a hole in your chest is this. The slave is what becomes of you if your social credit drops too low. They take your goddamn feet, then
he turns him into an Among Us.
they drill a cheese
Look, he turned him into an Among Us.
grater to your face and force you to push boulders into a giant furnace to repay your debt to society. Kill the guy without provocation? Yeah, that's gonna be 5 boulders. Destroy the entire server with a rot bomb? Find a new server. Finally repaid your debt? Very nice. Now there's only one more thing to go in the furnace.
You!
I'm just gonna say it. This is peak game design. There are reports of slaves escaping captivity and roaming the streets, but they never get very far. In conclusion, please stop killing me. I'm trying to do laundry. Now let's move on to the next class, the
Corpse
Doctor.
Man.
The Doctor is the cheapest class to access and the easiest in the game. Your primary role is to heal people by giving them transfusions of your blood, which damages you in the process. Luckily, you're the only class that actually regenerates health, and you do it very effectively. Given this, your economic success in Aneurism 4 depends entirely on your willingness to play a zero nourishment, zero thirst, zero sanity doctor build. Because
Jump scare Kanye!
your regeneration makes it practically impossible to die. But if you're in more of a rush, I recommend committing healthcare fraud. If you assemble 3 doctors and beat one of them half to death, you can initiate a 2 or 3 minute long blood swapping program, which should earn you plenty of money and social credit. Aneurism tells us that the doctor is the one who does no harm. But that's debatable, since I just paid this man 20 credits to go around stabbing people to stimulate my healthcare business.
You get to choose apples. You get to choose.
On the topic of business, I'll give you a heads up. These people, and this might surprise you, don't believe in paying for healthcare. In fact, I've witnessed doctors beaten in the streets for even suggesting
I think healthcare is a scam. Controversial opinion.
a 15% gratuity. I've tried to establish a private healthcare system, but the only compensation I ever received was from this enforcer who gave me half a dozen live rats. I think I'm going to cry. Handfuls of live rats actually brings us to your other duty as a doctor, producing medicine. Down at the pharmacility, you can use such exciting and sanitary ingredients as dumpster rat, odd glue, and stale kielbasa to produce a variety of medicines for the public. This is an approximate science, in the sense that I am approximately responsible when my attempts to synthesize sodium metal result in the death of my co-workers. As a doctor, I don't usually kill people by accident. I usually do it on purpose. For example, I found out the vending machines sell a product called Suisoda, which is literally just carbonated cyanide. So obviously, I bought several of these and started leaving them at the laundromats. Almost invariably, a troll would wander in, say something to the effect of,
I wonder what this could do if I drink it.
and then die on the spot. I don't feel bad about
And then you use his corpse and then you eat it.
this, because I'm harvesting their meat and turning it into medicine at the pharmacy. The only reason this server has antipsychotic medication is because I'm willing to murder proles and process them through a meat grinder. You can thank me later. All in all
for the greater good.
being a doctor is
Like a
very
true
fun,
proletariat.
except when you're a doctor at the wartime factory. When a bomb malfunctions and mortally wounds 35 proles, you will fear for your life. I have personally witnessed several doctors drop dead after transfusing a prole with the final drop of blood in their body. And if you refuse to do this, you'll probably just get shanked with a screwdriver and die anyway. If you survive a shift in the factory, you'll live with the mental scars for the rest of your life. I can still hear them screaming my name. Doc, please help. Enforcer Bussy got me acting up. Think I'm but a bust, were the last words of dozens of trolls as I helplessly watched them bleed out at my feet. In conclusion, the Doctor is a good class for bad players. On to the next occupation, the Liquidator. This class does 3 things. It incinerates dead bodies, incinerates live bodies, and maintains the public infrastructure. Unironically, this might be the most important job in the game,
What are those
and
blobs?
I'll use an
They
example
look like
to explain
balls.
why. Imagine you're a moderator in my Discord server. With each passing day, the messages get more...
Listen, blue balls, I can see you're new here. Let me give you a little piece of advice. We don't talk about Reggie here. Unzips pants. In the grunge, we talk about gay sex. Average Canadian experience.
More deranged than the last. It's your job to delete anything that breaks TOS, and if you fail to keep degeneracy levels below a predetermined amount, then Discord staff will send a KGB agent to strangle me to death in my sleep. That's pretty much what the Liquidator does, except instead of deleting furry inflationist OCs, they dispose of dead bodies to keep the city from physically rotting. And instead of me getting asphyxiated by an Eastern European man, they're trying to avoid the end of the world.
I'm starting to get ideas from my own Discord server. Mods! Delete all inflation porn out of my fucking Discord, please.
Because if the rot level reaches 100%, it's all over. Fresh wipe, let's go to customs.
Ooh.
So disposing of rotting bodies in the industrial incinerator is absolutely paramount. The primary threat to the Liquidator is being pushed into the industrial incinerator by a random troll. This happens all the time and is usually foreshadowed by something along the lines of,
excuse me, there's like a thing stuck in the furnace.
If you hear someone say this to you, consider it a
The proximity chat goes so hard in this game. I love it.
direct threat and violation of the non-aggression pact, at which point I recommend killing them while the police watch on in approval. These cretins tend to work in pairs, so be prepared to also incinerate his friend after he attacks you with a pipe. Noteworthy events for the Liquidator include every event, because they all result in massive casualties. Wartime factory? Yeah, we just pile the skeletons out front. Ration cycle? More like recycle, as I throw you into a furnace. Probably the best event is the Purge. Every so often, the scum living underground will perform this ritual which turns the city red and legalizes all crime for about 15 minutes. Cops can gun down as many people as they need to get an erection.
It's like a blood moon!
Trolls can steal as much as they want, and you should probably hide. The premise of this event is that the scum are basically testing the strength of our social fabric. Now listen, I've labored in the factories. I understand the camaraderie and unity that is forged through hard work. I want to believe that our citizens can be trusted to navigate this event peacefully, but that's just not realistic. In fact, I just witnessed a police officer gunning down an entire dumpster full of people. Cortex apologists will call this an isolated incident, but I assure you, it is not.
That's just a normal day in the Balkans, man.
Maybe, just maybe, we as a society aren't yet ready for...
Yeah, I'm good. This is why I don't go outside, Shred. I'd rather play a video game like this than go outside.
That being said, this is a very profitable event for the Liquidator, so get to work, Janny. Speaking of profit, that brings us to the next class, the Banker. In the Aneurism 4 Venn diagram, the Banker exists in this region. Your role is to conduct business transactions and try not to get killed in the process.
Oh, the banker! Kill the banker! Take the money!
For example, I go on the dark net and order 15 illegal hot dogs, which I then sell to the police force for double the price. Everything you order is stashed somewhere around the city, waiting to be picked up. And let me tell you, there is no greater stress than trying to make sure you're not being followed as you head to a...
Little jiggle pig!
And let me tell you, there is no greater stress than trying to make sure you're not being followed.
And he's gone.
As you head to retrieve 60 kilograms of delicious gabagool that was hidden under the docks. Also, the Banker is the only class in the game which has a built-in voice modulator that makes you sound like a young Jewish boy.
I literally can't go any lower than 30 credits.
What did the developers mean by this? Apart from supplying people with food and materials, the Banker is also responsible.
How does Reggie know what a young Jewish boy sounds like? That's the better question. What did he mean by that?
Responsible for handling credit transfers. Simply put, everyone in Aneurism 4 has social credit. This is not lost between deaths. However, they also have financial credits. These are lost between deaths unless you deposit them with a banker, because your bank account will carry over across lives. Doesn't matter which banker you use, it's all the same system.
Ah, wonderful.
And
just
as
like
a banker,
America.
I get to decide what fees I want to charge for accepting your deposit or withdrawal. Long story short, you're a mobilized ATM, and a very important part of your server progressing long term. However, due to recent events, there's a lot of anti-corporate sentiment in the world, long term. However, due to recent events, there's a lot of anti-corporate sentiment in the world,
Always
and bankers
has
have
been.
a pretty bad reputation.
When I get you, bro, when I find you, buddy. 1863.
I remember that.
Proles in specific seem to enjoy killing us for sport. I once witnessed a gang of proles dedicate an entire afternoon to chasing a banker through the streets, and when they got him, it wasn't pretty. I'm not sure if it's the stronger blue-collar vibes or the fact that they're giving out free pipes, but personally, I always get the
Who's
shit
doing
kicked out of me if I
that?
ever go near the metalworks.
I bet you there's a class that's handing out the pipes to cause chaos.
If you want to minimize the amount of times a pickaxe sails through the back of your head, you could always reduce your banking fees, but then I'd have to kill you myself. You see, on my main server, I established a cabal of bankers who all agreed to price fix our rates at 5%. No higher, no lower. So you could imagine my
Mafia
surprise when I
moment.
heard rumors of a rogue banker offering 0% banking fees. After learning about this, I met with my
Break his legs.
associates, and needless to say, that guy was never seen again. People think the banker is about making money, but it's not. It's about making good impressions and then making money. Because if people don't like you, your life expectancy will be shorter than a thirsty prole at a laundromat. The
Yeah.
uncivilized prole fears the self-sufficient capitalist, because we can become something which they cannot, financially wealthy. This makes the banker the best class to own property with. In Aneurism 4, there are several pieces of property that you can lease, ranging from apartments to storefronts and even a casino. You can fill most of these with items to sell to the public, and if you're in a good location, it's basically a license to print money. Speaking
That's
of printing
so
money,
cool,
I also
man.
literally print money. By gathering a variety of machine parts and suspicious meat, I was able to craft several
Suspicious meat.
tapatrons. These are contraband items only available to the banker, and if you're caught with one, the police will not hesitate to put you down. So you better have a good place to hide it. These satanic electronics require a constant supply of food,
amazing.
and if you keep them well fed, they'll give you lots of money. At first, you can probably get away with feeding them dead proles from the laundromat, but as their hunger grows, you'll quickly find yourself shoveling fistfuls of hot dogs into these
They're like freaking sentient, like AI.
demonic VCRs. I have a mental
Demonic
fixation
VCR.
on min-maxing business management minigames, and I might have gone too far
He
with the
has the
banker because
autism.
I spent an entire week grinding credits
I'll tap you for 20 credits. Man, this game's kind of homosexual, ain't it?
and purchasing people's
I'll give you a
leases out from
tug-tug.
under them. And now, I own half the city. My
Deal?
first order of business was to
Okay.
corner the market on intestinal worm medication. You can get these pills from the pharmacility for about 9 credits, unless you're on my
Whoa.
server. Because I bought the entire supply and relisted it at my stores with a 250% markup. In society's war against intestinal worms, I am on the side of the worms.
Oh, that's expensive.
Also, I got bored of
Ooh.
selling people normal food, so instead of feeding them gabagool, the entire server is now surviving on a healthy diet of my homemade cigarette soup and carcinogenic
Ooh,
slop. You'd think they wouldn't
yum.
buy this, but they do. And as a businessman, this feels spiritually enriching. Once you achieve server-wide monopoly, you'll have a lot of free time on your hands.
Reggie isn't Canadian, he's actually American at heart. He's really putting that capitalism to work. It's just business.
So go ahead and
Corporate
have some
burpa
fun.
moment.
Sometimes I like to leave the door open on one of my shops and wait for someone to sneak in, before quickly closing and locking the door behind them. Then I just wait for them to realize they can't get out. Sometimes I'll even push a
No!
dead body through the storefront to make them panic before closing the shutters. They stare at me through the gate, and I stare back at them as they quietly realize how I got that body. In all honesty, I'm not actually sure where the body came from. Sometimes I do starve people to death in my shops, but other times disgruntled proles just stuff rotting bodies through my storefront to protest my exorbitant prices. Joke's on them though, because I just sell the corpses back to the liquidators for a profit. This type
That's
of high-level
amazing.
capitalism requires a very strong alliance with the police force, so I recommend treating them very well in return for their continued protection. Every time there's a police shooting at the ration factory, they drop off the bodies to me, and my Capatrons eat well. Now that you've got an
Ooh,
ungodly amount
smart.
of money, you might want to invest it. And in Aneurism 4, the safest way to invest your money is through a man living on the other side of a ventilation grate. I don't know who it is, but I do know he's reliable, because he has been reliably purchasing drugs from me for the past week. Now, in terms of events, the only one that really matters to the banker is payday, when everyone rushes to the government pay terminals to receive their money. As a banker, you don't receive a salary, you get something even better, everyone
What?
else's. In conclusion, banker, best class in the game.
Oh.
Spend all day grinding real estate,
No, go back. I need to see the The
to
tier
receive
list.
their money. As a banker, you don't receive a salary. You get something even better.
Very
Everyone
nice.
else's. In conclusion, banker, best class in the game.
High time preference parasites. Wage cocks! Upper management with guns. Giga Chad landowner.
Spend all day grinding real estate, getting called
So you're like BlackRock. Ooh.
racial slurs, and being assassinated in the street. 10 out of 10 realism. Now let's move on to the last Cortex class, the cops.
Except you can't kill BlackRock, unfortunately.
They say it's easy to hate the rich, but it requires real courage to hate the poor. By this metric, I can deductively reason that the police are the most courageous people in the server. As a cop, you have several responsibilities, including patrolling the streets, confiscating contraband, maintaining social stability, and
Oh, you have like a walkie-talkie over here. You can communicate with your other police buddies. I bet that's a popular class. Boys love to play like camaraderie classes, where you get to like make friends.
executing limitation orders. What's a limitation order, I hear
love
you ask?
men.
Well, let's assume you're a prole, and you just decided to beat 3 bankers to death for the crime of not being as poor as you. And you did it all on camera. In response, the
Oh,
Cortex is going to
no!
order a limitation to your bloodline, starting with you. Once you're marked for limitation, the police will be paid to hunt you down, and if a camera spots you, it'll relay your position to the cops. So it's just a
See?
matter of time.
That's
Your
so
experience
cool.
as a cop is binary. If you're on a low pop server, it's going to be pretty boring and you'll finish like 600 patrols. If you're on a high pop server, you'll never even touch a patrol because the amount of psychopaths you run into scales exponentially with server population.
awesome,
Under
dude.
these circumstances, maintaining social order during the ration cycle becomes borderline impossible, and in most cases, you'll be outnumbered 10 to 1. So I highly recommend working in teams. Cooperatively, we can oppress far more civilians.
It's fucking so hard.
Far more civilians than we could have otherwise. This is the concept of Gestalt police brutality, and you need to learn it well.
He's running, kill him.
Man.
An important part of optimizing your state terrorism is understanding the community you serve, learning their likes and dislikes. For example, why does this prole call me a racial slur every
Oh, whoa, I just got whiplash.
time I beat him with a nightstick? I need to understand. A good way to get a sense of your community is by going to the city bulletin board. When I first saw this, I read a few posts and thought, wow, this is so cool. I wonder if these are all pre-generated or if they're player-made. And then I read a few more. Definitely player-made. In fact,
Yeah, that definitely looks player made. Yeah, I was gonna say I'm gonna play this on stream, and now I don't know anymore. I don't think so.
90%
Not a
of
good
the posts
idea.
are just sexual analogy and terrorist threats. My conclusion from this research is that trolls don't really like
I'll
anyone,
fit right
but they
in.
especially don't like the police. And in a game that has no report feature, I must be prepared for my fellow citizens to tell me to kill myself on
I'm going to come in your eyes.
consistent
Are you
fellow
serious?
citizens to tell me to
I'm gonna rope yourself, loser.
myself on a consistent 15-minute basis. I
Please
tell myself
stop
it's not
killing
personal.
me!
They don't actually hate me, but I know that's not
This is
true. Because
anarchy.
when I get bored, I like to plant
that.
contraband in the wartime factory and wait for a prole to pick it up. Then I chase them down the street, search them, find the illegal items I planted, and kill them for social credit. The Stanford prison
That's
experiment could not
evil!
have prepared us for the antisocial tendencies you will develop as a cop. I once saw a cop walking down the street. He said audibly, "Damn, I'm getting pretty hungry." At which point he approached a random prole, shot him in the face 8 times, and then began trying to harvest his meat with a police baton.
I'm so hungry. I just want to eat him. I just want to eat him so bad.
The roleplay is insane.
That type of stuff is so normal, it's almost not even worth mentioning. Interesting events for the police include the Purge. If you've got a high concentration of other officers, this will be pretty fun. But if there's only 2 or 3 of you, you should be afraid. The proles aren't thinking about killing you. They've already decided that they will. Now they're just
Yeah.
thinking about whether to use knives or pickaxes. Now all of that constitutes like 60% of your job as a cop. The other 40% is fighting the
PvP
scum.
time.
They live underground in these tunnels and emerge periodically to stage terror attacks and disrupt your beautiful utopia. It is your job to organize police raids and suppress their presence at all costs. Normally,
just
this
like
isn't
real
too
life,
difficult
man.
because they're all insane and their guns are made of Elmer's glue and logs of shit. But on occasion,
Are you serious?
difficult because they're all insane and their guns are made of Elmer's glue and logs of shit.
Oh, it is poo-poo.
But on occasion, they will get the better of you. One time, me and the boys managed to plant a double agent in the Scum cult, and he led all of us into their base for a massive raid.
That's
However,
awesome.
after wandering around, we realized that no one was here. Turns out the Scum had someone on the police force leaking them information.
They got double-crossed, I already knew!
And they
That's
knew we
drama.
were coming.
That's
As we were
cinema.
leaving the tunnels, they were waiting for us, and I got a full shotgun blast to the face.
That's
I did not
amazing.
enjoy this ending to The Departed. Without proper vigilance, the Scum will gain the upper hand and start to overpower the Cortex. And let me tell you, being the last police officer left on a server overrun with cultists is the truest form of survival horror. That being said, banding together with liquidators and slowly restoring the city back to working order while the citizens cheer you on is actually very fulfilling, and I highly recommend it. To summarize, playing the police is pretty fun, and exceptionally fun if you're willing to do some light role-playing.
There's nothing personal. You're just unskilled, unlabored, you don't have a degree or anything. You're an unskilled cog.
You never amount to anything. You're unskilled, you're uneducated, you got nothing. You're unskilled, you do nothing. Alright, just kill yourself. All of my homies hate
Oh,
that.
just kill yourself, you piece of
That concludes all of the jobs and mechanics for the Cortex classes. So now we can take a look at what it's like to be Scum. My first interaction with Scum was when a filthy man emerged from a sewer drainage pipe and asked me to throw him some food.
Up here in the tube.
I saw no reason to distrust this man, so we tried to toss him a chunk of meat, but some prole dickhead intercepted the food, ate it, and called the tube man a false idol. Obviously, the prole had to die. We chased him down, killed him, and worked together to feed his body to the tube man, who gladly accepted and screamed out in ecstasy.
Yes, the false idol.
Turns out that guy wasn't even Scum, just a very weird prole living in a sewage pipe, but I really liked his style.
Bring me more corpses.
I love the roleplay. That's so good.
First real interaction with the
tube man
Scum
must
was when I was
sustain
manufacturing
himself.
explosives. In the middle of my shift, a scumbag broke into the factory and went on a 25 prole killing spree. He also brought a doctor with him, who spent the entire time shredding an electric guitar and laughing maniacally. At first, I was interested, but now I'm sold. Time to roll
That's so
Scum.
metal.
The Scum is a deeply ironic rebel faction because there's a social credit requirement to join it. And once you get down in these tunnels, you quickly realize the anti-establishment doomsday cult is actually way more communist than the communist state that it's trying to
it's the
overthrow.
average Twitch
But I'm getting
streamer.
ahead of myself. Let's start with the basics. You spawn in as a scumbag. You've got a knife, a lighter, and a warrant out for your arrest. Fortunately, you're relatively safe in these underground tunnels, which gives you plenty of time to gather resources and work with other Scum to plot attacks against the Cortex. If you're on a good Scum server, you'll probably have about a dozen teammates and all of your resources will be
cool.
communal, which is very important. Because let me tell you, there's nothing worse than playing by yourself, spending 40 minutes sifting through literal feces to find gun parts, and then finally traveling to the top side only to get limited almost immediately. So do yourself a favor and cooperate with other terrorists. At a low level, your goals will be things like destroying public ATMs and security cameras. I know that sounds mundane, but if you can't win a fight against a vending machine, then you're not ready for what comes next. As a scumbag, you have to feed your local zealot, and what he's hungry for is human flesh. So you and the fellas will organize raiding parties, kill a few people, drag them into the sewers, and feed them to your boss. By consuming the flesh, the zealot becomes more powerful, and eventually he can even promote you into a zealot, which provides a massive HP buff. Some people will try to tell you this is a thinly veiled analogy for corporate America and the human cost of profit. Those are the people you want to kill first. After that, just toss the skeletons in this big ritual pit. Once we get
This looks awesome.
and in there, it starts the Purge event, which will hopefully cause civil strife and produce even more bodies for us.
More
Once you've got
bodies.
that momentum behind you and the police are busy slaughtering proles, I recommend crafting IEDs and bombing the city's neurostabilizers. These machines filter the rot out of Aneurism 4, and without them, things start to go to shit very fast. Destroy the stabilizers, kill the repairmen, and you're on a path to victory. However, I won't lie, no one is really expecting you to succeed, and especially not the police. The ruling class, looking down on us from their ivory towers, has always and will always underestimate the ingenuity of the common man.
They're breaking
For
the
example, could the
banks.
socialist superstructure have ever anticipated the invention of the Baldur, a wearable device that fashions your testicles into a phallus for penetration creative purposes? I think not. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is our
One of my chatters has a Baldur. Thanks for sharing.
edge. Because when the Cortex raids our stockpile and
I'm happy
confiscates
for
all of
you,
our
King.
gun parts, they forget that we can make machine guns out of nothing more than fermented feces and the axle off a lawnmower. Now, even with our poop guns, it's going to be an uphill battle, which is why I recommend the Great Equalizer, heavy drugs. By taking methadone before a raid, I can absorb
Ooh.
approximately 200% more police brutality before eventually bleeding out in a ventilation shaft. When you utilize these tips and tricks, you'll finally start winning.
I
I
love
could
this
tell you
Sims
about my
music.
most successful terrorist attack, but I'd rather tell you about my least successful. After
Alright.
several hours of grinding parts, me and the fellas finally created a rot bomb. This is the largest explosive in the
Ooh.
game, and it can easily wipe out an entire server under the right conditions. So we waited until the war
Oh, it's like you have to plant the bomb and then you have to protect it? That's so sick.
time event triggered,
Like
because we knew
CS:GO.
everyone would be in one location, primed for the bombing. Sneaking up to the
That's
top side,
fucking
we slipped
sick.
through several alleys, no police in sight, and the factory is full. This is perfect. My
Oh.
teammate sets up the bomb and we arm it. It's motion activated, so once the proles come flooding out of the factory, they'll trigger it and it'll kill everyone. Truly
Oh,
a masterstroke in
shit.
terrorism. As we're making our escape, I see a prole arriving late to the factory. He's running straight toward us.
No,
Dear
kill
God,
him!
no. He sprints directly into the motion-activated rot bomb, triggers it, and blows the three of us up in what must have been the least successful terrorist bombing of all time. Casualty breakdown. 66% friendly fire, 33% guy who wanted to die anyway. That was a tough pill to swallow. But
That's
what's the day-to-day
fucked.
like down here? Well, we all drink out of one giant puddle of bloody water.
Delicious.
And everyone is hopelessly addicted to chain-smoking cigarettes, as it's the only way to stave off our descent into insanity. Other than that, it's just a lot of cannibalism. Cannibalism,
Tasty.
that sounds extreme. What about ration day, I hear you ask? Well, my naive little friend, let me tell you about ration day. Getting your rations as a member of the scum is totally possible. I would just expect about 50% casualties, because
Oh,
you have to
shit.
assemble a team of 3 to 5 heavily armed serial killers, make a coordinated push to secure the canteen,
Sounds like it's
destroy
doable.
all surveillance cameras and witnesses as you move, and then survive at least one shootout with the cops. All that just for a little government issue slop. Eventually, through enough
Tasty.
teamwork and dedication, you might be able to make it to the late game as a scum, where you've effectively destroyed the police presence on your server and society begins to unravel. This is a fairly interesting phase in the game, because
Alright.
you get to observe firsthand the wide range of human reactions as people realize the world is ending. It's kind of like being on a plane that's about to crash, except you're the one crashing it.
Yeah.
In this footage, we had taken control of 90% of the city, with only 1 or 2 cops left to resist us. In response, every physician in town attempted to isolate themselves in this pit to avoid having to heal us. However, that also meant that they couldn't heal the other citizens, so the proles viewed this as the
Oh,
doctors
no.
abandoning them, and they formed an angry mob, jumped in the pit, and started killing each other. These are truly the final days of the Roman Empire.
I'm telling you, man, it's so scary what happens in video games like this that have analogies and allegories towards real life. This will happen in real life if this ever, like, the apocalypse or anarchy erupts. Every man for himself.
Final analysis. Scum is great. Wander around in the darkness, eat organs, balance your methadone addiction with a
Ooh,
nicotine
yum.
addiction, do terrorism, and then get blown up by your own bomb. The best class ever. Alright, that's it for this video. I hope all of that made sense to you, because if not, good luck
They
sifting
should
through
study
500
this.
medical research papers when trying to Google anything about this game. In conclusion, Aneurism 4, terrible spelling, great game. The police presence is oppressive. For a title of this quality, it's remarkably cheap. So I look forward to
12
seeing each and every
Canadian
one of you
dollars.
rubber banding across my server in the near future. Just remember, Big Brother is always watching. Oh no, Big Brother Cortex, I got stuck in the washing machine. Please don't hit me with a pipe and steal my flesh.
That was awesome. Guys, go check out Reggie. It's so funny. Amount of disturbing references was very high.
Fire, 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 fire.